Do you ever wonder if you can sell your home and live in it after you close and still get all of your money? Or better yet, sell your home, live in it after you close, still get all of your money and not have it cost you a bunch of money. Today, we're gonna look at some tactics and strategies that sellers are using to sell now and move later. So stick around. What's up everybody? My name is Joey Guest and I'm a real estate agent right here in Central Florida. We've been talking to a ton of sellers lately that are ready to take advantage of the tail end of this crazy seller's market that we've been in. And I'll tell you what I mean by tail end a little bit later in this video. But a lot of people are actually afraid to sell because they don't want to be homeless. This is probably one of the best times in recent history to be a seller in the real estate market. But essentially, if you're selling a piece of real estate, you're most likely gonna also be a buyer in this ultra competitive market. So this is not the easiest time to try to buy a new home. So what do you do if you're a seller looking to capitalize on the market? I mean, the fear of being homeless or having to significantly settle or compromise on your next home is holding a lot of people back. Traditionally, in situations like this, we would do contingency contracts, which essentially would allow you to get your new home under contract with it being contingent on the sale of your current home. And I know what you're probably thinking, why should that matter? I'm not gonna have any problems selling my home. And why would they wanna add an additional layer of risk or complexity if they don't have to? So another strategy that sellers would typically employ would be something like a bridge loan or even a home swap type product, which essentially lets you borrow in advance on the equity in your current home to use that towards your down payment. So you have the ability to close on the new property, move into that property, prepare your old home for sale, and actually get it sold. But these aren't always a good fit for everybody. And there have been some really creative out-of-the-box strategies, aside from the traditional ones like renting a home, that we've seen sellers using just to take advantage of the market, which include things like moving in with family members or moving into another property they already own, which could have been a rental. We're seeing people move into extended stay Airbnbs. Maybe they're going mobile and even traveling around or exploring other markets. And we're even seeing people go completely mobile and they're just moving into RVs or even sailboats, and they're just taking the equity and just living life for a little while and not putting the pressure on having to buy a new home. And of course, there's always the people that are buying another home, but they find themselves settling or compromising significantly, and ultimately they're not happy with their purchase. The good news is there are some alternative strategies that sellers are using to sell their home, get all of their money, continue to live in their home without it costing them a ton of money. So they have the time to make a rational decision on what or where their next move is going to be. So some of these you've probably already heard about, but you may not have a complete understanding of exactly how they work, or maybe you do, but I think it's important we cover them just for transparency and so you have a comprehensive understanding of how you can sell your home and still live in it. All right, so let's get right to it and talk about the ever popular topic right now of iBuyers. The word iBuyer comes from the term instant buyer, or as we've more recently come to figure out, institutional buyers. Essentially, this is Wall Street's way of investing in residential real estate. And in my opinion, this is a huge contributing factor to the market conditions we have right now, but I'm gonna save that rant for another video. And if you guys think that Wall Street is contributing to these market conditions, why don't you drop Wall Street down in the comments and let me know. So essentially, these institutional buyers like Opendoor, OfferPad, and even Zillow at one time will make you an offer on your property and pretty much guarantee that they'll buy it from you, which is great because you essentially have the assurance of a guaranteed sale. Now, they do advertise that you can do this without any realtor fees, but what they don't necessarily make public until you really dig into it is the fact that they do have a service fee, and this can range anywhere between 5 to 12% depending on the property, your needs, and the market that you're in. So we're not necessarily here to look at costs and to go over the nuances of selling to an iBuyer, but we're gonna focus on how this affects you and your ability to stay in the property. Now keep in mind, each iBuyer has slightly different programs and they all are changing their programs on a pretty regular basis. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna go over something that is available right now at the time I'm shooting this video. So if you do have questions about what's currently available in your market, please make sure you reach out, call, text, or email us, and I will make sure that you have the most up-to-date information on what programs you can take advantage of. Okay, so right now we're gonna look at OfferPad as an example. They have a program called the Extended Stay Program, which essentially does what it says. It allows a seller to stay in the property for an extended period of time after OfferPad buys the property and closes on it. And this sounds great, but when you really look into the details of the program, they're only offering an extended stay of 3 days. So essentially it gives you enough time to pack and move and maybe get some things ready at your new house. So this is a good option if you already have somewhere else to go. It gives you a couple extra days buffer, but this isn't really a good solution for a lot of people in this market, because essentially what's driving this need to stay is the fact that most sellers need more time to find another property. So the extended stay program of 3 days isn't really doing a lot for many people. All right, so now we're gonna look at a similar scenario, and I'm gonna call it cash offer now. You guys have probably seen ads for people willing to give you a cash offer on your property. And this could be from the big institutional iBuyers, and a lot of times this is from local investors or a investor marketplace. Now this is similar to selling to an iBuyer in the sense that somebody is essentially saying, I will guarantee that I will buy your property within a certain amount of time. And in a lot of cases, you will have some more flexibility when dealing with a local investor or even going to the investor marketplace. Okay, let's look at this example. Let's say that you've owned your home for 5 years, and over the years, it's gone up in value significantly and you have built a great deal of equity. You've taken great care of the property over the years, but just like any property with people living in it, it's got the normal wear and tear items. And ultimately, you don't really want to have to deal with getting the house ready for the market. And maybe you don't want dozens of buyers and agents coming through your home showing the property. Maybe you're working from home now, you have pets, small kids, whatever the situation is, it's just not ideal. On top of that, let's say your roof is now 15 years old. And although it may be in great condition and not leaking, with the way that the insurance marketplace has been in Florida, you know that in order for a buyer to be able to close on this property, the roof's gonna have to be replaced prior to closing so they can bind insurance on it. Now, a situation like this can make selling to an iBuyer or even a local investor very appealing, especially if you're just looking for a quick and easy sale, regardless of whether you're leaving a little bit of equity on the table or not. And we've already looked at what some of the iBuyers are offering for an extended stay. And while it may solve the problem of having a quick and easy sale, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem of giving you flexibility to stay in your home. This is where selling to a local investor or going to an investor marketplace can actually give you more options, because you're now dealing with a real person and not Wall Street. And especially if you go to the marketplace, now you're gonna have multiple investors competing for your property. We work with a lot of investors and they absolutely love it when we bring them properties that are pre-market that they have an exclusive look at before it goes public. And believe it or not, they're actually really flexible and willing to work with sellers to tailor a solution that actually fits their needs. So as a seller in this market, you actually have a lot of leverage when working with investors or going to the investor marketplace. So some of these investors love to buy properties that need extensive work so they can actually come in, fix them up, build equity instantly and resell them for a profit. Or we have others that are in real estate for the long term. And others are only looking for properties that they can actually buy and hold long term, and they'll pay market value or close to it because they're playing the long game. And so in turn, like I mentioned, we have a lot more leverage now when we're negotiating an agreement between a seller and investor. And this has been a great way for a seller to get their cash up front and still be able to live in their home until they're ready to make their next move. And so this is typically referred to a post-closing occupancy. So since we're on the topic, let's keep talking post-closing occupancy. So it's no secret how favorable this market has been for sellers. And at the moment, it still is, even though we're at the beginning of a shift. So a post-closing occupancy, believe it or not, is actually not uncommon these days. A lot of buyers are actually willing to let the seller stay in their home for a period of time, and in a lot of cases rent-free until they're able to find their next home. And I'm not just talking days or weeks. In some cases, we're seeing this offer being extended for months at a time. So a post-closing occupancy might be one of the most favorable options out there, because you can sell your home on the open market for top dollar without having to worry about a double move or even paying rent. In fact, this is a tactic a lot of buyers are actually using in this competitive market to give them a competitive advantage against other buyers and make their offer stand out against the competition. Now, I do think we've seen the peak of this, and it's going to start becoming less common as we start to transition out of this crazy seller's market into more of a traditional seller's market. Now, there is another option that I think is a lot more sustainable, and we'll continue to see it as the market continues to shift, and that's a post-closing occupancy with a seller leaseback. So obviously, like the option we just talked about, this allows the seller to actually sell their home, get their money, and continue to live in the home, but they're leasing it back from their buyer. Now, there's no set in stone terms on how this works, so it could be as short as a couple weeks to a few months to maybe even a few years. It really just depends on the situation. And actually, this is becoming favorable to a lot of buyers as well, especially people from out of state that are buying homes here in Florida, because maybe they're trying to lock in a property in Florida now, they plan on retiring in a year or two, and this actually gives them the ability to offset their carrying costs while knowing that the homeowner or the previous homeowner is still there caring for the home. And so in a lot of cases, this is actually less risk for them as opposed to going on the rental market and securing a new tenant. And so we've seen leaseback rates range anywhere between what the previous owner's mortgage payment was to what the new owner's mortgage payment is, sometimes market rent, or kind of a hybrid in between the two where it offsets carrying costs for the new owner and still keeps the payment reasonable and in line with the previous owner was paying. The good news is this is 100% up for negotiation, so ideally you could be able to craft a deal that's going to work best for your situation. So if the fear of being homeless or being forced into purchasing another home that you really don't want to buy is preventing you from selling your current home while we're at the pinnacle of this crazy seller's market, you have reasonable options. Reach out, we'd love to go over those with you. You can call, text, or email us. I've got that down there in the description. If you thought this video was helpful, let me know. Hit that like button down there. You can subscribe to the channel here, watch this video next, and we'll see you next time.